now tuned into the. Turn the music up in the headphones.
Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of our new podcast, LABELLESS.
Hey folks, how you doing? I'm Xavier.
And I'm Kimber, the magnificent one here.
Well, if that's what you think, whatever you say.
You know, it takes a little bit extra to get me going, so I got to boost my self-confidence here. Welcome, and I think in this episode we're going to discuss the NFL boycotts.
That's something that's been on your mind lately.
Of course, we're going to delve into Black History Month
It is February.
It is Black History Month.
That's
so
right.
Stand up.
The flu epidemic's been going around. Something, little discussion about that.
Yeah, some magnificent things going on in the state of California.
Indeed. And also, of course, a podcast wouldn't be complete without a little 45 update.
Little 45 updates. It's either going to be a shutdown or a parade, so stay tuned.
Boy, oh boy, it gets crazier every day. But first, how about a little pre-cap podcast shout-out?
I do have a pre-podcast shout-out that I would like to go to everyone that actually held out their NFL boycott.
We did.
Regardless of your reasons, regardless of what you thought, I think in and of itself, the ability to commit to not watching a particular television event.
Well, it's difficult for football. The fellowship. Well, it's not just the game. It's the fellowship. It's the food, especially the Super Bowl.
It's difficult for anything. That's like if somebody said they're going to cancel their cable. But I mean, TV.
The commercials, right. everything.
Something that you're used to having for, like as an outlet. It's a big deal to give it up. Like we Netflixed and chilled. Yeah, but like I said,
we hadn't been watching football all year, so it wasn't a hard change for us.
I know it wasn't for me, but for everyone out there who was able to not get your jersey out the closet.
They got them.
And you know what I'm saying? Get that thing ironed up with the creases, and you didn't go to your friend's house.
You didn't have any Tostitos. Yeah.
I would just like to say, I salute you. Way to stick to it.
Excellent. And there's something to be said about stick-to-itiveness.
It's a big deal.
Indeed, for sure. Well, my pre-podcast shout-out is going to go to San Francisco. They're doing something that I think is absolutely incredible. They are going to expunge the record of some of the marijuana violators, drug offenders.
Because it's legal now in California.
That's right, yeah. The last ballot box election.
Marijuanas, in case anybody was wondering.
So it's legal in 9 states now for recreational use, and it's in 20 states for medicinal. But just think of California or San Francisco, for instance. They're going to get rid of your convictions for marijuana drug possession or whatever it was. So it's really going to open up the doors for those people to do a lot of things they couldn't do before.
Right. It'll open the doors for them to jobs, school applications, financial aid, professional licenses, housing, all the things that with a drug conviction, typically people are prohibited from taking part in.
Absolutely. And like I said, the war on drugs was such a drastic burden for a lot of black communities back in the 90s.
I mean, they say the war on drugs, but I mean, let's just... petty marijuana charges continue to be a nuisance in the lives of many Americans, and it's pretty ridiculous. And it's a great thing that California said, hey, you know what, marijuana is legal now, and you have San Francisco and San Diego deciding that instead of making people apply for expungement or they're just gonna
do it. Yeah, you don't have to come in and say anything. It's just done, which is fantastic. So my pre-podcast shout-out goes to San Francisco and San Diego. Bravo. Well done.
Well done, indeed. So, it's Black History Month. It's still February.
It's short. I know we know it's short, but it is Black History Month.
Right. Congratulations to everyone who made it through the year of January. I feel like January has been all of 12 months long already. So here we are in Black History Month. And I think most people feel like, all you know is February is Black History Month, and you celebrate it.
Well, I was under that same guise, and so I did a little research.
You did, and what you come up with?
It was originally started in 1926, and it was National Negro History Week by a guy named Carter G. Woodson. And it was the second week of February because that's when Abraham Lincoln's birthday was, and so was Frederick Douglass's birthday. And apparently black folk have been celebrating those two birthdays pretty heavily.
Apparently 45 didn't even know Frederick Douglass was dead, so somebody.
and so he wanted to start something to help people remember the history of a race, because he felt like if you didn't have any tradition, then sometimes you stood a chance of being exterminated.
Right.
So kind of, if you didn't know where you're from, you start to know where you're going.
Okay, so if it was only a week, how did we get to this fabulous month we got now?
I know, I kept going. And so Kent State, there were some black educators there in February 69, talked about it. And the first month-long celebration took place a year later in 1970. So the first year-long celebration of Black History Month was in 1970. And then 6 years later, it was celebrated all across the country, 1976. So I was born in 77.
Right. So Black History Month is, well, I was going to say not that old, but I mean.
You're funny.
Considered, yeah.
Very
Bada
good.
bing.
Very good.
So Black History Month is roughly 41 years old.
40.
40-ish.
41. Yeah, and I think that the thing that people were saying, because a lot of people say, well, why do we have to have a Black History Month? You get that side of the argument.
Right.
And then you get the side of the argument, well, why is it only a month long?
Right. Why is it only a month long? I think I know for me personally, I feel like I've been on both sides of this. I've been why is, it's like, because I'm an American, like, why is there Black History Month? And then you realize, okay, well, you want to learn about all these fabulous people, and then you get to where we are now and you feel like, why is it only a month long? Like, why is this, why are we celebrating Black Americans in a vacuum? Well,
yeah, because that's the way we celebrate Black America history, because we separate Black history from American history. I think that's part of the issue I have with the Black History Month, is that sure, we appreciate highlighting, the heroes that changed the world that were Black people, but those people were Americans. They weren't just Black Americans.
Exactly. And it's like the way, we spoke in the last podcast about how they make such a hero of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
And it's like they do, but you will never hear him referred to as an American patriot.
Sure, because I think patriotism and Black people don't always go hand in hand.
Right. They've separated the idea of Black Americans being patriotic,
Sure.
And it's weird.
When I would say that, Black Americans have always been extremely patriotic, especially sometimes in a country that hasn't always loved us back.
Right. But to still put your self forward and do everything you can to try to make a place better.
Sure.
In spite of, that's patriotism at its finest.
Absolutely. And I think another problem I have that with the Black History Month is it becomes almost a hero worship kind of thing, to where you only highlight all the good things that Black Americans did, and not all the bad things that happened to Black Americans throughout history. Well,
that it takes it's a certain measure of erasing the animosity, and that, I mean, was a job well done by the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Well, yeah,
basically,
absolutely.
They've erected all the Civil War monuments and done their best to erase anything that spoke to how horrific slavery was.
Sure. I mean, and sometimes it's hard. Certainly, things are sometimes hard to talk about when they're bad, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be spoken about.
Exactly. But even now in South Carolina, you have the social studies standards
I saw that article.
Changed. The Post and Courier. I mean, good job, Post and Courier. They really do get to the bottom of the things that matter that you wouldn't hear about, that you should know about. So the South Carolina social studies standards are essentially erasing Rosa Parks, Robert Smalls, John C. Calhoun from the history books. It's like I don't know how you're really going to teach Black history in history class if you're just going to omit certain people.
Well, see, and it's funny how we're already, even every time you say it, you say Black history, but I think we should try to say American history.
You're right.
But we've been programmed to say Black history, because as if Black history is not American history, but Black history is American history.
Right.
So maybe we should say we're going to not teach Black history, we're going to teach American history right.
a truthful representation of American history,
including all the people that helped build America to the great country that we all love today.
The good with the bad.
Sure.
And in saying that, the good with the bad and a truthful representation, I also want to point out how old Dixie Cathy, and that is what I call Catherine Templeton.
Oh, yeah.
Went about her speech to some students, letting them know that she was so proud of her Confederate roots and that her family wasn't fighting the Civil War because they had slaves. They were fighting the Civil War because the federal government was trying to tell them what to do, and that they didn't need the government telling them how to live.
But see, I would beg to say that she is a product of her education. And her education has
taught a compliment.
Her education has taught her that the Confederacy was not fought over slavery; it was fought for states' rights, because that's the way they teach it a lot of times in education.
Yeah, but you as an adult, you accept the position that spins you the furthest, and I think for Dixie Cathy, that position has provided her a certain level of advancement.
Oh yeah,
and
but
so
but I believe that she believes that her family fought the Confederate War for states' rights, and I think there are a lot of people that believe that the Confederacy was here for states' rights and not slavery.
Well, they had slaves. They wanted the right to have slaves. So whether she believes it or not, the facts are the facts. And she is, oddly enough, running for governor, but preaching that we don't need government.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that's the one thing that happens with history. When history is taught in a revisionist way, it gets romanticized to think that the Confederacy is something to be proud of. I think that if the Confederacy and Civil War and slavery and South Carolina history was taught in a truthful manner of all Americans that it involved, I don't know that somebody would be so proud to wrap themselves in the Confederate flag. I believe that.
I don't think she'd be as proud if it didn't get her advancement. So there's two sides to that coin. I agree with you, but I also think that there are lots of people that would quickly dismiss the idea if it didn't get them something. And for Dixie Cathy, pretending to be a part of the old boys club and laud the Confederacy has done her well.
Well, she's in South Carolina.
Of course. I'm like, she'd put the stick down and quit banging this drum if she was somewhere else.
I mean, we just took the Confederate flag down a couple of years ago because 9 people died in the church in South Carolina.
Well, I think,
and that's the only reason the flag came down.
I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't try to put it back.
Well, she said something about that in one of her speeches.
Maybe she can wave it at 45's parade.
Oh boy. Yeah. So that's going to be a thing, huh?
It seems to be on track to be a thing. I know he wanted this sort of Soviet Union, North Korean parade.
We got money for that?
Apparently there is about to tack on another $1 trillion to the debt. I mean, what's a little parade money?
Yeah,
what's that? Spinners and maybe some Chinese hats.
It just seems strange to want all this pomp and circumstance when there's not any work being done for the American people.
There's no money for health care, but there's money to roll some tanks down 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue
just for his delight. And that's what it's strange to kind of.
It's like smile and wave, boys.
Right. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, it's really strange that the way the government is being run right now. It's very nostalgic of dare I say, Adolf Hitler.
Well, yeah, but see, people don't want you to say that. It's like saying that there are similarities there to most people immediately cuts off the conversation. They're like, no, that's not what this is. And like, even if the intent is not necessarily what's that called? Ethnic cleansing. There's still ethnic brainwashing.
Sure, well, and
it's just as dangerous.
And I saw he said, during his State of the Union speech that he said that the Democrats that didn't stand and applaud when he said things that everybody else was stood and applaud was treasonous, and that to me is unbelievable. Which is the same as
yelling out, lock her up. It's like they might as well start yelling, lock them up, because they didn't They didn't stand up and clap, you know.
Right, and they didn't applaud their
I
leader.
don't see why he has a problem with it either way, because he wants to shut the government down. Isn't that his
I heard
entire
that
speech?
he had some discussion about because if he didn't get the money for his border wall or his improved security, because every immigrant coming across the border is a member of MS-13. If you didn't know that, everyone,
gang,
everyone that comes across is a member of MS-13. They're committing heinous crimes all over the country. Everyone. And I think it's funny because, like, I read somewhere, immigrants really don't come across the border anymore.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
You know, they get on the plane, they fly over here, and they just don't leave, you know?
Basically. But that's also the discriminatory mindset of people that feel like illegal immigration is only brown.
It's true.
If you was to call ICE right now and they get on a plane, they're only going to pull off the people that don't look American.
Well, and that's what he's done a good job of doing, is separating us into colors.
Right.
You know, like you said, he makes you think that only illegal immigration is of brown people.
Right. Oh,
Muslims,
he makes you think
Muslims or Mexicans.
Muslims and Mexicans. M&Ms. That's all he sees.
Well, you know, we were talking last night, and I was telling you that I think that we should stop calling ourselves Americans. We should start calling ourselves North Americans.
Pan American.
I mean, we are the same. We're all on the same continent. You know,
basically.
I mean,
but I mean, somebody's so proud to beg for a shutdown should not be calling other people treasonous because they didn't clap or because they don't necessarily agree with what it is that he says. But it's not surprising because of how he addressed the players doing the NFL boycott, for someone that could sling SOBs out of their mouth so easily.
Yeah, but that's always directed at people of color. I mean, that's also his number one mantra, is always directed at people of color. That kind of condensation and name calling and disparaging remarks.
It's just more division, you know. In the same vein, we have our wonderful governor Henry.
Oh goodness.
Who decided to issue a statewide proclamation for everyone to stand and salute the flag during the Pledge of Allegiance.
And not only did he issue
during the national anthem.
Not only did he issue that proclamation, but he took a picture of himself and his wife at home, hand over heart,
standing up in the living room.
It's fantastic.
If you don't, take a seat, sir. Take a seat. Like, I'm pretty sure you could have spent your time scribbling out on a notepad some sort of legislation that involved teacher pay, that involved roads.
How about getting me my money back from Scanner?
That involved, listen, Dominion Energy. I don't even think that deal is going to go through, but at least Henry said he was not going to allow them to keep poaching us. So, you know, he was kind of going in the right direction with that, but I'm pretty sure there's more of a backstory there.
Well, I think all it does is it speaks to partisan politics, because all it is a strictly political move to ground up some votes for the upcoming election.
I'm very disappointed in how easy it is to just side with those that you know are already on your side. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy, right?
I know, like, right now everybody says such a politically charged time, and it is. There are certain people who say things that you disagree with, and you continue to disagree with those people, and you cut them out because they disagree with basically like the core of good for humanity.
Right.
There's no coming back from things like that. But if you are in a position to govern, and instead of
no one wants to govern. Everyone wants to win. And so in order to win, all I got to do is get one more vote than you. I don't have to. So if I get 51 votes and you get 49, I win.
Yeah. So, Henry, I beg you to govern. Don't just try to win. You're there now. Just govern.
No, because you don't have to. Like, if I can get 51 votes and talk to my 51 people, and your 49 don't agree with me, it doesn't matter what you think, what you say, because I don't have to talk to you at all.
Because the whole telling people to stand, one, we don't even have a football team in South Carolina. No team. We're begging for crumbs from the North Carolina Panthers, as Diddy called them. But that's neither here nor there. We don't have a team. So to say that speaks directly to the people who have taken issue with players kneeling or players raising their fist in the air or players taking any sort of political stance during this NFL season. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a vote grab.
It definitely
and it's very low hanging fruit.
It was the one good thing that I think came out of the boycott. However, even though Cap doesn't have a position,
Cap
on
won't ever
team.
have a job on the team,
right?
Again. But I think his job's bigger now, which is great.
Right, I think his job is actually done. The fact that it created player activism, it created some actual forward progress within football teams.
Sure.
There's teams who've come up with social justice programs.
Well, the Eagles, for example, have been living on the forefront of a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Malcolm Jenkins met with the league, and they agreed to donate a ton of money to some social justice programs.
Right. You got players out here going to bond hearings. They actually, I think a lot of times people say, "Oh, you make all this money, do something." And I think now, that's becoming more of a thing, and I think that's a huge deal.
And I'll tell you, and I think that it didn't start with football. I think the election of DT made a lot more people more aware of their surroundings, and made more people want to get involved in the process.
Right,
which is great because
of the boycott. I don't think it ever was to actually shut the league down.
No, absolutely not.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely
but I think
not.
it was a matter of people trying to bring attention to something and then other people feeling like they don't want to hear it. So,
sure.
I think it became a boycott of, well, if you refuse to listen, then we're not going to take part in this.
Well, you go back to the Montgomery bus boycotts. The bus boycotts were not to shut down the entire bus system forever.
Right.
It was make a change.
Right.
To bring awareness and make a change.
Get some people to open their eyes. And I think that that really did happen.
Absolutely. And I think it also helped to get more people involved that weren't black people. More white people got involved, and it was like, hey, wait a minute, there must be something going on.
And that's also happening within those football teams and outside of the NFL. So,
absolutely, and the change that he sparked has really been incredible.
Right. So it's great because Cap's stance was never really about Cap.
No,
and that's what true activism is supposed to be.
Absolutely, it's very selfless. It's going to be thankless, and you're going to be considered a terrible person.
Right. And while we're talking about the difference between true activism and boycotts of another nature, I just want to say, hey, my loves, join with me in boycotting. I am not going to boycott Netflix because Monique didn't get $3 million or $10 million or whatever it was.
You've been following the story a little closer than I have.
I have, because I've seen people compare the Netflix boycott request from her with the boycott of the NFL.
Really?
Yes, they have. And I'm like, these two things are not the same. One of these things is not like the other one.
Yeah, no, not at all. I love Sesame Street, by the way. Shout out to PBS.
Yes.
But you're right. It is absolutely not the same thing.
Right. It's like although the one thing that I can give her is that gender and pay discrimination and inequality is real. I can give her the fact that she brought up something that does exist.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's documented throughout. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even for regular people in Hollywood, entrepreneur, whatever it is, those things are real. So she did bring up real issues. But
I think the way she went about bringing that issue up is a problem.
Right. For me personally, I have not told anyone. Some people have decided they boycott Netflix because of what Monique said. And, if that's what you want to do, fine. For me personally, it struck a chord of selfishness. I don't think you get to try to galvanize the people for you.
Sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Her complaint was her own personal gain.
Right. And she wanted more money.
Right.
She wasn't trying to change the world or get social justice for everybody.
And a lot of people like, well, I mean, how you going to put a number on what she's worth? And I'm like, I absolutely agree with that. I personally don't think that Xavier can pay me at all what I am worth to him.
Oh,
I mean, that number is just unquantifiable. Honestly, However, if I slide my resume across the table trying to get a job, they're going to give me a number. And that number is either going to be okay with me or it's not. And
Well,
I don't think I can walk to the front office.
Didn't I hear where they said they wanted her to audition, and then she could have gotten a different amount of money, and she thought she was too good to audition for the part?
Right. They said they wanted her to basically kind of, do like, I guess, a little Def Jam thing, come in and audition for a panel of some of their execs. And they might give her $3 million for it, depending on how they felt about that.
Yeah, and see, I think
didn't want to do the audition.
That seems pretty fair to me.
People are arguing the legitimacy of that claim, but to me, even if it was only $500K, if you didn't want it, don't take it. Like everyone's like, oh, Wanda Sykes said they only offer her $250, and Wanda Sykes is a legend. And I'm like, I love Wanda Sykes. She's funny. But Wanda Sykes got offered $250 and she didn't take it and she went somewhere else. It's like that's always an option. I just feel like there are different ways of doing it. A lot of people have chosen to say, what difference does it make how she did it? And I'm like, that's absurd.
Well, and I think
how you present something matters everywhere.
Calling for a boycott because you didn't get an amount of money is nowhere near the same as Kaepernick kneeling for social justice.
But I'm like, why
why
not pitch the $500K 60 minutes, an hour of jokes? Just do it and then turn around and make some sort of documentary about gender inequality in Hollywood.
I don't think Monique's that funny.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying she's funny. I mean, is it going to be $10 million? No, because now we live in a world where algorithms are king, and if you don't already have exposure, how are you supposed to convince somebody that you're going to sell out?
And granted, I've never seen a Monique stand up. I don't believe.
Queens of Comedy.
How long ago was that?
I don't know, in the 90s. I'd watch it. I'd watch it again right now. But it's funny enough.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but that's the issue that Netflix had. Basically, like, yes, you're funny, but the last time you've done a comedy series has been a while ago.
Right.
But I say all that just to say that the comparison of those two things for me was way off. I think one of them was seriously about police brutality that predominantly affects people of color, but not at this point it affects everyone. Exactly. If you look at the numbers, abuse of power is a real thing in this country.
Certainly, and I think that's the one thing I think that Cap stand. I think people sometimes they got so blinded by the messenger and how he was sending his message that they missed the message. That I think the abuse of power, police brutality, is really become an issue. There's a new documentary coming out on PBS here and coming up called "Do Not Resist." We've already previewed it, luckily, and it's incredible. It talks about the rise of the militarization of the police force.
Yes.
And so it's turning to a war zone.
People would be wise to take note.
Yeah, I mean, so not just black people.
Everyone.
Yeah, I mean, rights are rights. Rights don't have colors when it comes to sometimes police officers. I think, black people have been killed disproportionately more than white people just because they're running with the law. But white people are also being killed at the hands of police officers, not just minorities.
Right.
And they're, and it's just as bad. And that's the thing. I think people need to understand is that we're not saying that black people dying is worse than white people dying. It's all really, really bad.
Right. Like I said, abuse of power is abuse of power. It doesn't matter who it happens to. I take issue with the fact that a lot of times the first thing people think is that if you had any sort of run-in with the police, then you were wrong, they were right, and whatever happens to you is just that, and that it doesn't matter. And so I think a lot of these cases actually going to trial, and people being forced to think about what it is that they do every day and take some different considerations for how you would approach an individual. It's not always I have to be right or they have to be wrong.
Sure, there's two sides to every story.
At two sides,
and I think we should talk about each side. I mean, it's a tough job being a police officer. We all know that. It's a very tough job.
Absolutely.
And we all appreciate what they do tremendously because they make the world a safer place.
Right.
Most of the time. And 99.991% of them are always doing the right thing.
Right.
But it doesn't make that small percentage that do the wrong thing above the law.
Right. Exactly. It's like it still has to be some sort of repercussions when something goes wrong,
Obviously wrong.
right, because someone's intent was
Certainly.
not proper.
Right. And there are people that, in all positions and all jobs that have bad intentions. You can look at the Larry Nassar guy that's been sentenced all these years for sexual assault on the kids.
Yeah, I mean, what did he get?
Ever.
Yeah, forever, as well he should.
Right.
And even he still felt like
Yeah.
the judge was coming down on him too hard, and he didn't want to sit in there and have to be a part of this.
Sure, but
trial.
But he made his bed, and he's being punished for what he did wrong. And I think in a society such as America we live in, all we want is when somebody does something that's wrong, for them to be punished for it accordingly.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's funny you bring that up, because I think today the White House staff secretary Rob Porter also resigned because he has some allegations of criminal domestic violence against him from apparently both of his ex-wives.
And I saw that story, and I saw where he denied it completely, but then he still resigned.
He said he wasn't about to get into this public.
But
I'm like, even if he doesn't get into it, it's still gonna be.
No, if I've done nothing wrong, I'm getting into it.
Well, then there's that, but I feel like there has to be some sort of shred of truth within it.
Well, I think that's a very good point. Like I said, because if there's a conversation that somebody accused me of something and I know I've done nothing wrong, then I'm going to get into it with them.
Right. But the turnover in this administration is absolutely out of control. I mean, you got people quitting, people getting thrown out the front door.
Would you
allegedly,
want to work for 45?
But you've even got people that stand up and walk in there because they want the job, and then it comes out that there's some dirt in the laundry. Can you can't even get a clearance with CDV. So how did he get in?
Can you imagine the turmoil that's going on in there, though? I mean, think about what we see and how crazy it is, right? Think about what we see happening and how crazy it is. Can you imagine what we don't see? I mean,
I'm pretty sure they're in there just, sitting down and sipping tea and everything's calm and cool as a cucumber.
Well, it's hard when you have a narcissistic 4-year-old running the country. Or that's your boss.
King of debt.
And all he's looking for is a magnifying glass to go and burn ants in an anthill. I
know, but I mean, he also has unlimited resources. And what could possibly go wrong with that?
Well, I think part of... I think part of what's really going to be going wrong is this new nuclear strategy where they're looking for smaller nuclear weapons. You see this new posture? So they want to have, instead of having big nuclear weapons where you got to launch a big nuclear weapon, they want to have smaller nuclear weapons where you can launch it and hit somebody with it. And
that makes me think about that scene in Despicable Me where he's...
Yeah, so they don't want to have these huge weapons. They want to have smaller nuclear weapons, so to be able to put them on smaller weapons to be able to fight with them in a smaller area. Which just sounds crazy to me.
It's amazing to me that the same people that say there's no money for health care, there's no money for, there's no money for free education, there's no money. We can't afford this.
The military always gets money.
There's money for a wall. There's $700 billion for military expansion. There's money for a parade. There's money for all these sorts of I mean, like, epically war founded things. Let's make a wall. Let's be more ready for war. The United States of America has the finest fighting force on the face of the earth.
You sound like Donald Trump.
And I say that as a proud Army veteran. That there is no question in my mind that is not true.
Sure.
So for people to continually harp about putting more money in the military as if the military is out here throwing rocks across water.
I agree. I wish they would put more money in taking care of our military veterans.
Taking care of soldiers, period. Like, more money needs to go into physical fitness. It's like,
I guess that's true.
Especially like now, like being out and going to CrossFit. Shout out CrossFit Valor. Being out and going
Coach Nate.
to CrossFit really showed me how unfit I was as a soldier.
Wasn't there a story that came out? It was last week, I think. Your friend Dooley put on his Facebook page about them putting people out that hadn't been deployed.
They're trying to put out soldiers who have been in non-deployable status for, I think, more than a year. And that's the thing. There's lots of soldiers who are on like profiles or
bad feet
for
or
whatever reason that some of them are overweight, can't pass a physical fitness test.
Right.
So it's like, but they haven't truly evolved that part. So it's like you have people that actually can't deploy, but it's not like the number of soldiers that you have that can deploy is so menial that you need to be giving people the boot. But it's
but why are you a soldier if you are not deployable? Because your job is to be deployable, right?
Right, but at the same time, there's soldiers that aren't deployable because they can't get healthy, and it's not because they haven't tried. I mean, I went to physical therapy 7 times for knee pain. Knee pain. You run so much, you have the same thing. And what do? They basically do the same thing. They put you on a bicycle, to give you some band, and it doesn't make you any stronger. It doesn't prepare you to go back and do that same repetitive movement over and over again.
But as a soldier, shouldn't you? I don't know. There's something you can do other than just ride the bike.
But you don't know what to do. Like when the doctor assigns you to PT, you go to PT. You go to PT. You go to PT, and you go to work.
Well, like now, if you hurt yourself now, you rehab it and you go back.
But that's only because I've learned so much more.
So you're saying there should be more information for soldiers when they need that?
Absolutely.
How to
like
get
strength and conditioning is a real necessity. So it's like the healthier you are as a soldier, the healthier you will be as a veteran. But that takes an investment. Well, I mean, $700 billion. $700 billion.
I mean, that's not included. That's not included in that investment.
No.
Oh, okay.
$700 billion, and that's not in there. But the issue there isn't just with the military. The issue there is healthcare in America. Period.
This is true.
The lens which we Western medicine views what it takes to be healthy.
Well, I think the flu epidemic this month killed over 100 people in South Carolina.
106 people in South Carolina.
Wow,
I think last week alone there were 22.
And and a lot of people continually go to work because they can't afford not to.
Right. And so there's been some research done on the impact of the working poor on things like this, on an epidemic, because when people are poor, they will continue to work.
Right.
Because
they can't afford to miss work. They need their money.
They can't afford to miss work.
They don't have sick leave.
Right. You tack on the fact that you have, like South Carolina, you have places that actively seek to not have unions, to not give benefits. True. So you have even more poor people.
And so that person makes that person sick, and that person gets sick, and
it's not like we're talking about. I'm not talking about poor people who don't have a job. I'm talking about the working poor in America.
And that's the segment of America I think everybody forgets about. Is there are people that get up every morning and work over 40 hours a week and
work
are poor,
2 jobs,
and are poor,
and are still poor,
and can't afford to pay their bills.
Because minimum wage is where it is.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of employers are not forced to give sick days.
Right. And that trickles down into everything.
Right. Because if I have to go to work and I don't have money for daycare, then I'm going to go to work and I may send my sick child to school.
Right.
If I send my sick child to school, then that's also spreading the flu.
Absolutely. And then you get those strains going. Like this year, I think it was a different strain that came out.
Right.
Because it's a super bug. Because then when they do get a prescription, all they want to do is give everybody antibiotics.
Right.
So you make it where you create these super bugs.
Or I work someplace in fast food, God forbid, or in some sort of restaurant, or in hospitality, or in a hospital, wherever you are. If you come in contact with lots of people, then once again, it's the same thing.
It spreads.
You're spreading germs,
right?
And that is where for me, people saying there's no money for healthcare becomes laughable, because you are still going to spend the money. You're either going to put that money up front and provide preventative care universally,
right,
or you're going to have people who can't afford to pay the hospital, and then they're going to go in and be seen,
sure,
and then the hospital's going to be sending out a bill that's not going to get covered, and then they'll end up having to try to write it off, or worse, the hospital just loses money.
Right. Well, you talk about preventative care. There's no cure. There's no money in preventative care.
But there is.
But I don't think insurance companies and hospitals see it that way, though. I think they don't feel like if they can keep you from coming in, they're going to get any money out of you. They can't get you a prescription for a medicine you don't need.
But isn't investing in humanity profitable? I mean, you laugh at me.
I do because
I'm not an optimistic person. However, I see things this way. I feel like,
no, people don't see it that way.
Imagine all the people.
No, people that want to make money do not see it that way. They don't, and that's probably the biggest thing is we can do a lot of things, but do we want to? We did this thing in Furman a couple years ago, and this guy was talking, and he said back in the caveman days, there was this kid that was born that couldn't walk. And so he had to be carried everywhere he had to go. He had to be carried because he couldn't walk because he was born with a deformity. They found this out by his fossil they found. And he lived to be 15 years old, I think he said. And this time and age where there was no wheelchairs, there was no handicap access, but he had to be carried everywhere he had to go. And he was like, well, how could this kid that can't take care of himself at all live to be 15 years old? And it's because the people in the village wanted to. We have the means to do a lot of things in America. Right. But we have the means to provide health care. We have the means to provide education for kids. But do we want to?
But I think that's how people view the American dream comes into play. Because, a lot of people feel like, oh, America, the land of milk and honey. It's the land of opportunity. And they look at that opportunity as their chance to get rich. Well, instead of actually having a standard of living that is peaceful across the board.
Well, that's the thing. Is either you want to be really, really rich,
or you want everyone to be okay. I don't find wanting everyone to be. You chuckle every time I say this.
Because I appreciate what you're saying, and I also agree with you that as a humane person that believes in humanity, we should want everyone to be okay. But that's just not the way it shakes out.
It's not, but it's the way doctors shake out. They want everyone to be okay, which is why they prescribe them copious amounts of opioids.
I'm not going to get into this opioid conversation.
No opioid crisis?
Not right now, because for me, this is a very touchy subject. All I'm
saying is, Jeff Sessions said that marijuana is gateway drug to opioids.
It's a very touchy subject. I'm not even going to start with that. I'm going to pass. That'll be a whole podcast for me by myself. I may do that one by myself because I feel very strongly.
Drop a hot 16. I think you can go straight bars with no hook.
I can.
On the opioid crisis.
I can feel very, very, very strongly about the opioid epidemic crisis that we're in.
Okay. Well, we will save that for another.
$10 million is Henry's asking for in his budget this year for the opioid epidemic. $10 million.
In South Carolina?
Yes.
Wow.
You didn't see that, did you?
No. Yeah, that's
my kid's bus is late for school every morning, but he wants $10 million.
Henry not paying for the bus. Henry is not going to pay for those.
I'm sorry.
For the fire-prone buses, we don't have no money for that.
I'm sorry.
We don't have no money for that.
I don't want to get going with
Medicaid ain't no money for that. So if you want to see the there's no money list, it's very long in South Carolina. What there is money for is the parchment paper he used to print that proclamation out. There's money for that, okay?
Yeah, like I said, the opioid epidemic hits really close to home to me, and I have a lot to say about it. But like I said, that'll be a whole podcast extra by myself.
Yeah, all I'm saying about it is that I think if more attention and time was actually truly devoted to preventative care and wanting people to be okay, then we would not have found ourselves in this opioid predicament. But that's what people do when they say, when you go to the doctor, you tell the doctor, I have this problem, I can't sleep, I can't work, I can't, do this and that, but I also can't afford to not work. Then the only thing they can come up with is
something for the pain.
Something for the pain. Yeah. And a lot of times for some people it's becoming pain medicine for their body, or they want pain medicine trying to medicate the life they live, and that's sad.
Yeah, like I said, I can't get started because we'll go another hour on this opioid
Okay,
epidemic.
well, let's brighten these things back up, and give me a little caring and sharing moment.
You ready? I got something. I've been waiting for this moment. I
Okay,
got something.
I'm ready.
So there's a limited docuseries on TV1.
TV1.
Yes.
Okay.
I know it's maybe hard for you to find on your dial, but you should search it out. It's actually called Two Sides, and it's dealing with 5 different deaths of people at the hands of cops. The first one was with Eric Garner, the I Can't Breathe guy in Staten Island.
Right.
The second one was with a guy named John Ezell Ford in California, and this last one was about a guy named John Coward.
Is this the one with the Walmart BB gun?
Yeah, he went into Walmart. He was on the phone with his girlfriend. He picked up one of these guns that they had just laying on the countertop,
Right.
kind of walking around the store with it. The guy called 911. The cops came and they shot him 0.3 of a second into the encounter. So it's a tremendous storytelling. It's really visually nice to look at. They do a good job of interviewing cops,
Right,
and interviewing his parents, his family,
and they really do lay out from start to, I guess I say finish, but from start to finish what happened.
Mm-hmm.
They do their best to try to let you know who was thinking what.
right? Why they might have been thinking this, and you see some of it from the cops' perspective.
Right.
You get a frantic 911 call from a guy who says the guy's walking around the store pointing a gun at kids.
Pointing a gun, muzzle checking children, and that he was loading the gun. But that's already the first problem. And
none of that was true.
A lot of it is the heart of the issue with some of these encounters is that there is someone else there, a civilian, someone calls 911,
right.
and from their perspective, they give these life-threatening calls.
Sure.
And you have police officers that show up on the scene, and in their mind, they are about to take out a killer.
Yeah, but I think also we neglected to say that he's in a state that's an open carry state.
Right.
So in all actuality, he was well within his rights to have a real gun.
To have a real gun, but it wasn't even.
But it wasn't a real
gun. It was
gun.
a random.
And I think they shot him 0.3 of a second.
Right.
Within
As soon as they saw him, they just opened fire.
So I mean, so I think it's a tough job being a cop. We all know that, but I think humanity should be a part of that.
Humanity is a part of it. Sometimes it's just taking a little bit more time to actually find out if what you were told is true.
Sure. Instead of assuming by what you see.
Right.
By labeling somebody.
By labeling somebody.
You like that? You see what I did there? You see what I did there?
Yeah. If we just simply labeled less a little.
Yeah.
Then things wouldn't necessarily turn out the way that they do, especially in life or danger situations.
Sure. And like I said, I understand as a cop, you get that call and you're going in, like Kim said, and you got a guy who's a danger, a threat, but you got to assess the situation maybe a little bit better, a little more thoroughly before you do something that you can't take back.
And I think situations like this actually being investigated, because I think the Department of Justice did do an investigation.
Yeah, but they didn't get charged.
They didn't get charged because they have a standard, and I don't know why I want to say I know they have a standard, and the standard is based on no hindsight. So 2020 cannot play into a DOJ investigation.
Okay.
So basically they look at it from the lens of did these officers arrive with the information given, and is what
job.
they did within what they would consider reasonable.
They did charge the guy that called 911.
They did charge the guy that called 911
because he changed his story.
Right, because
he had surveillance cameras.
Right, they charged him with causing a false alarm, and I'm okay with that.
Sure, absolutely. There's got to be some kind of consequences for your actions.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, TV1. I think there are 3 episodes in. It's a 5-part series. I know it's on TV1. I didn't know what channel TV1 was either.
I don't know if you can get it outside of TV1. If you got it, then tune in, watch it. If not, then maybe you can Google it.
Yeah, it may be on some kind of app online or some kind of.
But it's done by Viola Davis.
Oh yeah, she's the narrator of it. Yeah, she's local South Carolinian. Shout out.
And my book, The Shy, is still going strong. If you haven't already watched it,
it is indeed.
It's I think 4 episodes in.
Yep, they didn't have one Sunday because of the Super Bowl, so they ran a marathon this last Sunday.
So tune in to The Shy on Showtime.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, but think we're going to wrap things up here. That's all we have for you this week in episode 2.
Yeah, I mean, so I think 2 is like a trend. No?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed as much as
I mean,
we've.
there's 2 of us, and this is episode 2, but next week it won't.
It'll be 3.
Yeah, there'll still be 2 of us, so.
That's true.
Not sure where you were going.
I don't know. I mean, we've done it more than once.
So we're on a roll, technically.
Call me butter, baby.
Wow.
That bad? Pretty bad. Okay. Well, join us next time. LABELLESS. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, at me.
Hashtag me. Give us some likes on iTunes and all that stuff. And
yes, we're on iTunes, so go there and give us a review.
Yeah, you guys, please, because she's been working so hard on this. You have no idea how much effort's been going into this iTunes account. So please like it.
Yeah. I mean, give us a review, a rating. We are on iTunes, SoundCloud.
Are we?
YouTube. I mean, we're working on giving you guys some videos so you can see Xavier's face during some of this commentary. Yeah,
that's to come. We be on the lookout, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Look forward to the future.
Be well.
They say they never really miss you till you dead or you gone. So on that note, I'm leaving after this.